This is Gary Miller. Gary has been a elder previously at Covenant CRC up in Appleton. We have you on today because you're a licensed to exhort guy, which means Gary goes around. You may recognize Gary preaching at your church. I'm sure with some kind of regularity up at Covenant, Gary, but I know you've gone all over the place.
Yeah, I have. My background is not in anything related to church stuff. My background's in healthcare. I practiced pharmacy for 45 years and worked in any kind of venue of pharmacy you can think of, from hospital to retail to consulting, that type of thing. But since I came to faith as a college student, I've been much more active in developing my walk with God. So that's what led me into joining up with the LDN team and getting that training, working very closely with Pastor Mark Plummer, who I just thought was such a blessing, because here's a guy that's getting and has now earned his PhD in preaching, helping me with my sermons and coaching me and giving me advice in Mark's loving yet firm way. Like one time he said to me, "You got 3 really good sermons here, but you only get one."
Yeah.
So that's my background. I've been been an LDN now for, I think it's about 10 years, something like that. And so I've been preaching at churches throughout the classes, primarily, as you mentioned, Zach, at Covenant Church in Appleton, but I've been to Fox Lake, I've been to Pond, Marshfield, Delavan, Sheboygan. There's another one in there somewhere too, but I love doing it. I was down in Madison for several weeks, over in Wisconsin Rapids, when that church was kind of closing down without a pastor. I was there every other week. So I love doing that, and would love to do more of that if pastors are taking vacation or sabbatical or something. So that's my story. I'm retired and really good at it. I'm really a good retiree.
Not everybody is, Gary. I've been learning. Not everyone's very, very good at retiring.
Yeah.
But you're good at it, huh?
Yeah, I'm excellent. I'm an overachiever. I take a nap just about every day.
Did we overlap on the Camp Calvin board?
I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
I was
Just
leaving the Camp Calvin board, and you were coming on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know you've served that for many years. We appreciate that too. Gary,
Yeah, I love that.
For all your talk about napping and retiring, you're a pretty active guy, I know.
Yeah, that's why I need the naps.
Right. Yeah, that's good. Well, thank you for that introduction. Our follow-up is always, what are you working on? So what's been going around in your head lately?
Okay. You mentioned that I had been an elder and at our church, and I have not been for a few years. And I think that's because the elder board or our council and Pastor Mark have realized that the work that I'm doing for the church is so time consuming that it would just stretch me too thin. So what I've been working on is I've been leading our men's group that we call Man Club at Covenant Church. And we've been doing that every Saturday morning at the unbelievably terrible time of 7 o'clock in the morning, even when it's 10 below zero and dark as pitch. We have 6, 7, 8, 9 guys showing up on Saturday mornings for Man Club, and we've done all kinds of things of leadership, Bible study, friendship development, that kind of thing. But the main reason that I started Man Club and the way I want to continue it is that as men, I feel we're getting beat up every day. We are getting beat up on our jobs. The boss says not good enough, we're not producing. We don't get the encouragement that we need at work. We don't get the encouragement that we need at home. It's, why don't you do something rather than just watch football on Saturday and Sunday afternoons? Can't you help around the house? Can you get this project done? I know growing up, my father was a carpenter, and my mother had to hire carpenters to finish the projects in our home that my dad just said, it's a 9 to 5 job for me. I don't want to do it at home. So we get beat up like that. I think we get beat up in the churches too. I think, and I've been to churches. I didn't go to church on Father's Day for about 15 years. This is outside of the Christian Reformed Church, because I realized or recognized that the pastor on Mother's Day would just give this very flowering, mothers are the greatest thing, that kind of thing. But on Father's Day, it was always pointing the finger. You need to do better. You need to be a better dad. You need to be a better husband. And all this just getting chewed out. I thought, we don't need this. So started Man Club to say, this is important that we encourage another. Yeah, we're a mess, but we can encourage each other. And our Man Club is very confidential. So if some guy comes there and says, I'm struggling with fill in the blanks, and I need some help with that, we can, the other men can rally around him and support him and say, I'm struggling with that too, or this is what I found, this is what helped me. So lately, over the past probably 1.5 to 2 years, we've been doing a series on flawed men, faithful men. And we look at different characters in the Bible and see where they messed up and how God still used them. We've done quite a bit on Peter, and spent probably 8 months on Peter, because he's such a central character, of course, of the New Testament. And now I go from New Testament to Old Testament, so now we're doing Samson, and looking at him in Judges 13, 14, 15, and 16, and looking at his life, and Samson started with so much promise, and yet totally failed in his responsibilities, yet God brought him through, and he ended as a man of faith, written up in Hebrews 11. So that's what's been taking up a lot of my time, and then also preparing for sermons. My hat goes off to the pastors out there for your sermon preparation, because I know it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it always seems that when you have the least amount of time because of the demands of the church or demands of life, that's when you are behind in your preparation for sermons. And so it really comes together as a crunch. So that's what I've been up to.
Gary, have you found, I really appreciate your vision for Man Club there, a more encouraging approach to raising up men and raising up leaders instead of, I'll put it this way. My dad's been a coach for 25 years, and he's found that the way that you coach now is different. It used to be, get on the line, run again. And there's a little more, some people say coddling. I don't know if, that's maybe a little bit too harsh, but there is, a benefit to a more encouraging approach. I'll just say it that way again. Have you found that the leaders in your church, the men in particular who participate in Man Club, have you found their leadership to be better or their growth to be more through this approach and instead of the finger pointing and wagging?
Oh yeah, I think it's really revolutionized the way that they interact with other men and interact with their families, and even those men that are in positions of leadership in their jobs, they're looking at doing that work in a different way, completely different way. Because as you mentioned with your dad as a coach, I was coached by the guys that if you didn't do it right at the basketball court, you're doing another suicide. If you're doing not doing it right on the football field, you're running more laps. You're that kind of thing. And what I did in my professional career at the end, I was in leadership with Aurora in the pharmacy department. I recognized that if I could bring people along and say, this is where we'd like you to go, this is how I can help you get there. They were much more responsive than me from that perspective than me telling them, you're screwing up, you need to do this better, figure it out, or you're gone.
You said it's revolutionized the way that they interact with one another and interact at home. Can I push you for any more details on that? And I know you said
sure.
I'm not asking for names and situations, but like in what ways have you seen it revolutionize male leadership?
If and I'm just, this is no, it's not hypothetical. This actually happens. where people are saying, my wife, I don't know how to communicate with her. I don't. We're missing each other. We're not on the same wavelength anymore, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm missing. So can you help me out? And so we'll share some of our war stories and some of our victories as well with these other men. And it's not an age thing. We have younger men, we have older men, we have married men, we have single men in the man club. But then by encouraging them, saying, well, try this and see how this works, and then let us know how that's working. And it really has. My wife is listening to me. My wife is not browbeating me anymore. I'm acting more responsibly because I can understand from what you all have experienced that I've been doing this. I could do this in a better way. So that's been revolutionary. And also the fact that these men are showing up at 7:00 on Saturday morning.
Yeah, that's for an hour already.
That's a huge win. And we're doing a Bible study. Granted, we don't get into Bible study immediately because this is all about friendship development. And one case in particular, and these guys take great pleasure in getting me off track and getting me detoured. But one Saturday morning, all we talked about for an hour and a half was local fish fries. Where the best fish fry is, where you can go and have a great fish dinner and have an old fashioned if that's what you want. Where the best places are, and it was so great because it's like we're given permission to enjoy the life that God has given us, and that's been good too.
What was the consensus, Gary? What's the best fish fry in the Appleton area?
In Appleton, yeah, oh yeah, it's because I was just there Friday night.
There we go.
It's Mark's East Side
Side.
In Appleton on the east end of Wisconsin Avenue, followed closely by Dick and Jones in Appleton, and this would have been in first place had it not been out of town, but down in Pipe, Dick and I think it's called what's their name? It's in Pipe. It's right on the water, and it's just a great Wisconsin supper club, and all kinds of people. And that was
we may have found our first sponsor. I'll call and see what we can milk that for. No.
Yeah, Mark's East Side. That's the best. Gail, my wife, was out of town for a week visiting her grandchildren in North Carolina, and so she's flying in about 7:00. I said, "Do you want to go someplace to eat?" She said, "Yeah, let's go to Mark's East Side." It was perfect time of day too because the crowd had left and we had the place pretty much to ourselves. So anyway,
back on topic. Now that I successfully got you off,
you could fit in man club, Zach.
Yeah, there we go. That's an early drive for me to get up to Appleton. But how much of the success do you think is the more encouraging approach, and how much is it the openness that people are willing to ask things like, "I'm having problems at home and I need help"?
Yeah, that is a huge thing, that openness. And we don't, as men, we have a tendency, and I'm generalizing now, we have a tendency to be fixers. Oh, you have this problem? Here's what you should do. Yeah. Step 1, 2, and 3 with all the subpoints. That's what we should do. But the openness, we just listen to them and hear what they say. And then when we're doing our Bible study, especially this Flawed Men, Faithful Men series that we've been working on, and that's going to turn into a book someday, Bible study, as soon as I work on that. But what I'm finding out in that is we can see where these men of the Bible, let me cut to the chase here. God doesn't measure us based on our most egregious errors. He forgives us, but it's not. Peter wasn't categorized as a loser because he denied Christ 3 times. That's not the way God works. So once these guys don't understand it, and through the openness of the conversation that we have in Man Club, they do get it. They don't feel like they're just adrift at sea all by themselves with no hope of getting any help.
Yeah. There's a fancy name for this, and I don't remember it anymore, but communication theory that says openness breeds openness.
Mm-hmm.
The more open you
Yeah.
can be, the more open the responder is, and the more open you are again. And so to be
Yeah.
doing this, what did you say, 8 years? I mean,
Yeah.
I can
I think,
imagine. I can imagine that. I mean, you've really gotten to a deep place with that
oh yeah.
Bible study.
And the group has been, we've had probably 30 men that have come and gone, but there's a core group of maybe 9 guys that are there every time.
Yeah.
And there have been times, there were twice in these 8 years where I was the only one that showed up, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because that still, I'm keeping my appointment, and other guys, whether it's COVID, whether it's, getting snowed in or whatever, there's reasons they don't,
Sure.
might not come.
Sure.
But that core group of people, and back to the openness thing, it does breed openness. We had one situation where a guy said for the very first time that he mentioned anybody, I was sexually abused as a boy. And where do you go with that when you're a man? So how do you talk about that if you don't have a community of people that will, number one, keep their lips shut? That's one of the one of the requirements is confidentiality. In fact, I encourage people, don't even tell anybody else who's there. Don't tell your wife, oh yeah, Joe and Bill and Tom and Susie or Sam were there, because they don't need to know it. We keep our conversations private. Well, what'd you talk about in Man Club today? My wife might ask. Well, we're still talking about Peter, or we moved over to Samson. And then if she asks other questions, sorry, honey, that's as much as you're going to get.
Yeah. I appreciate you also pointing out, the tendency for men generalizing to be fixers. I've seen that manifest as works righteousness so many times, where people say, well, I've got this broken part of me, and I've got to get myself right before God. I've got to do something, step 1, 2, 3, like you said, to get right. And how many times do we need to be reminded, hey, if Jesus has chosen you and rescued you, you are right before God. Yeah. Jesus makes you right. No box that you tick or no work that you accomplish. It's Jesus. And so that's the ultimate encouragement. Talk about encouragement, Bible study.
And we talk about that too, Zach, that we're a new creation. And it's an evolving creation as we're growing closer to Christ. We talk about holding fast to the things that you know to be true, drawing closer to Jesus in your relationship with him, getting to know God better through studying the Word, but mostly holding fast to the things that you already know to be true.
Sure.
And that what we already know to be true is we're chosen by God, we're forgiven completely.
Yeah, amen. Well, are you working on any sermons currently, Gary? You got any appointments?
Well, I've been working on... because of the work in Man Club on Peter, I've got a whole series of sermons that I do about Peter, whether it's the Transfiguration, whether it's the first, actually the second meeting of when Jesus and Peter first get together, going through his failure, his success, when Jesus calls him, upon this rock I will build my church. And then I was planning on doing the last chapter of that at our church, at Covenant Church, but Pastor Mark was available when he thought he wasn't going to be. And so I still have that I'm holding on to. And that's the whole thought of God does not judge us based on our biggest failure. But that's what I've been working on. It's really been good. It's been good for me to study it out. And I've gotten a lot of positive comments from the congregants at the church about those stories and making those stories seem real.
Yeah.
But I've got nothing else going on right now. I try, if a church calls me and says, can you preach? Sometimes I'll rework a sermon, but most of the time I start from scratch and just pray about what's going on in my life and what I think God is telling me that this church might need.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thanks for your time this morning, Gary. Well, whenever people watch, I don't know, it's morning now, but any ways we can pray for you or for Man Club or for Covenant CRC? Any prayer requests?
Well, I do have a prayer request for Covenant Church. Is we are looking for an associate pastor, a full-time position, because our church is growing and Pastor Mark is wearing thin with all the responsibilities that he has, and our congregation needs an associate pastor because the church is growing, not just older guys like me, but it's young families that their children need direction, the youth need direction. So we need the associate pastor to help with that. That's the thing to pray for church, for Man Club, that we just keep on keeping on. It's a great group of guys, and and talking about them for just another minute. This isn't so much true anymore, but back in the day when God called us home, you needed 6 guys to carry your box out the church, or cremation and all that kind of stuff. They're called pallbearers. And you needed 6 friends to do that. In Man Club, I know I've got 9 guys that'd be fighting over the chance to carry my box out the door. And we would, the rest of us would do the same for them. So that's the kind of fellowship. So praying for that for Man Club, I think would be important. And for me personally, I'm 68 years old, and I'm in very good health, except for this last little bout that I had. But just that my stamina would continue to grow, and that I could live a long and healthy life in service of God.